Hello, hello. Welcome to day 3 of 100 Days of Moss, my up level from 100 Days of Visibility. The other day I mentioned how moss itself is a filtration plant. It is the oldest of plants that are on land. It's a cousin of algae. The beautiful thing about moss is how it filters water. It can hold a lot, but it cleanses it. It also has a tendency of not being able to grow where the air, the water is toxic. Moss is usually a good sign that things are healthy. One of the things that I find really interesting about this particular medicine is how visceral it is and how physically felt it actually is. See, when I actually put myself into a moss state, there is so much sensation that has run through my body. Even just listening to a playlist of music that holds the same thread, if I just sit here and listen to it, my entire body goes into the most sensation I have felt at any given time. And some days, all I can do is cry, and the tears aren't anything emotional. There's no name to it. It's just a flux of tears and a flux of emotion that needed to be moved. And so as I sit into it, I can feel a river of emotion run through my body, and it's not tied to any experience or person or conversation or memory. It's just intensity. What's interesting, though, is that intensity has probably been there the whole fucking day. But it's only until I'm still that I allow myself to feel it. See, because if I go through my day, I can be all in my head and just do the things that I need to do and move through moment to moment. But to actually feel what's going in my body, I have to be still. I have to be quiet. And part of life is understanding when you need to be still. And I think most of the time I'm just so good at overriding that. I'm so good at just, going from one action to the next action to the next action and doing so much and getting so much accomplished that coming into stillness and coming home into myself is so intense. And it's counterintuitive, to be honest, because you would think that stillness is peaceful and that stillness is quiet, but really the stillness is about me being my physical body so that inside of me can run wild. So that my insides, my emotions, my feelings can just be fully felt to the extremes that they actually are. Because that's really what they are, right? And I'm sure there's people out there just like me who have so much feeling that they spend most of their lives trying to numb it. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, or even workaholism, there's these numbing agents that come in to say, okay, well, you feel too much as a person, so let's give you something monotonous. Let's give you something you can numb out to. Let's give you something that you can totally ignore the intensity of which is running through your veins and bones. And let's just give you something to distract you from it. And then in the moments that you can't distract yourself from it, when you can't numb, when you can't be so stuck in the mundane, ordinary life, when you feel those surges of energy running through your veins, we're going to call it anxiety. And not only we're going to call it anxiety, we're going to give you medication now, because doing the monotony of life that previously could numb it out and could previously drum out the intensity that exists in your own bones, now we're going to give you medication to numb that intensity. Because we actually can't have you feel powerful when you have rapids running through your body. You would be uncontrollable as a person. And I know I've asked this question before to dozens of people of like, we all assume that we want power. But yet we have this romanticized, fantastical idea of what it actually looks like to hold power in our bodies. We have this idea that it looks like confidence. Well, no, it doesn't look like confidence the first time power surges through your body. It looks a lot like what we call anxiety. It looks a lot like what we call as overwhelm. But really, it's because we are so used to inundating ourselves with opportunities to numb, opportunities to not hold it, opportunities to totally ignore the intensity, that we never actually developed the muscle tone to be able to hold the power that it was. See, when I come into stillness, I have no choice but to feel all of the energetic molecules running through my skin. If I'm victimized by it, I'll call it anxiety. I'll call it overwhelm. I'll call it burnout. I'll call it 1,010 names. But it's not going to stop it from going away. And so I always laugh when someone tells me that they've healed their anxiety, because it tells me one of two things. Either A, you've learned how to hold power responsibly and respectfully, or you've medicated yourself to numb out from it. And a lot of people will say, well, no, I meditate. I meditated my anxiety away. No. Either you meditated to ignore the sensation in your body because you were all in your head, or you meditated to hold your power. You didn't meditate it away. It doesn't go anywhere. It's just energy. And so when I get to sit in stillness, I get to run the energy through my body, from the top of my head all the way down through the entire physical being. And right now I can just feel a swirl of energy in my belly. A swirl of energy that I have ignored all day because I was busy online trying to move my business off of Facebook and downloading documents and downloading videos and uploading them. I was ignoring my body all day. And now when I'm still, the intensity that was there the whole time can't be numbed. It can't be silenced. It can't be ignored. And so the choice is do I let myself feel it all? Do I run the energy through my body, or do I try to numb out again? Which is something we all do, right? We call it insomnia, and then we take melatonin. We say we can't sleep, so we try to insert things in our bodies rather than just letting ourselves not being able to sleep. Because not being able to sleep is just the process of what happens when you've numbed out all day to the energy and not just let the energy run naturally. Not cultivated a practice of where you actually hold your anxiety with reverence. And I know that sounds wild and crazy that you could possibly do that. But I've had anxiety, quote unquote, since I was 10. And the first time that I got it, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what it was. It literally just felt like my heart was moving into my throat. Like it was migrating up my body and beginning to choke me out. But I could still breathe. Breathing wasn't the problem, but it was as if my muscles just started to constrict. Yet I was clear I could still breathe, but this feeling wasn't going away. And so, we'd go to the doctors and they'd say, oh, you have anxiety. And I remember my parents being like, she's a kid. Like, what? As I got older, though, it got worse. And if I really look back on it, my quote-unquote anxiety got worse the more and more I tried to ignore it. The more I tried to numb it out and be so accomplished and productive in other areas of my life, right? So like in elementary school, I didn't really have that much responsibility. Yeah, I was trying to get good grades. Yeah, I was trying to be a good student. Yeah, I was trying to be a good daughter. But I really didn't have a lot on my plate. There was nothing really riding on me. When I got to high school, I started thinking about, what do I need to do to get to university? Well, I need to get good grades. I need to do extracurriculars. I need to do sports. I need to do all this stuff. And so what was riding on me was a lot more. There was more gravity to hold me down rather than to let energy flush. And so if you can kind of think of it as like all of the unnecessary intensity of my daily life, the tasks, the productivity, the weight of life became almost like a dam, like an energetic dam. And so the energy in my body couldn't flow fluidly because I had to ignore it. I had to ignore the energy as it was so I could get good grades, so I could focus in class, so I could do all these things. Then, in the blips of the life, the energy would break through the dam and I would have what they called an anxiety attack. And I'm talking, they would be explosive. I'd collapse on the floor. There was a handful of times where I remember Peggy, I think her name was. She was a hall monitor. And she came up and she grabbed my feet and like put it above my head so we could get the blood like flowing properly. I remember kids walking by me as I'm convulsing on the floor saying, well, that's what you get for taking drugs, because I was so out of mind and out of body. The energy was literally taking over because I had been ignoring it. I had been keeping it pent up. See, we talk about pent up aggression and pent up emotion, but we don't talk about pent up energy. And I think for me, in my experience, pent up energy was 100% the reason why I had anxiety attacks, because my life didn't allow for me to have the practices to hold the energy in my body. It didn't allow me to have the practices to create the muscle tone around holding the energy at all. My life needed me to show up every day at school, to get good grades, to go to my extracurriculars, to go to work. That's what my life allowed for. My life allowed for nothing else. And so when I didn't create the space for the energy to naturally flow, it tore it apart to make sure that it would, because it can only do what it's meant to do when energy is just like water. It's meant to flow. And so, flash forward probably a handful of years, I was still feeling anxiety. And at one point, I hit the spot where I stopped caring about things. And I don't mean this from the sense of fuck everything. There was a less of an emphasis on me needing to be right or good or productive. It was I'm going to do things that are right by me. And so I got to this place where whenever someone would question my choices, I would be the kind of person who would be if I had to do it all over again, I'd do the same thing I did. I understand you may not agree, and I understand you may not like it, but I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to honor me in every moment. And when I came from that lens, I stopped putting up a dam, an energetic dam, to block my energy flow so I could be more productive in the eyes of whatever my responsibilities or gravitational force. There was nothing weighing me down anymore. No expectations, no perceptions of myself, no projections from others. There was just a way that I stopped playing that game, where my energy that was running in my body was no longer the enemy to the life that I actually wanted to live. Because when I was in elementary school and high school, that was the reality, right? My energy was the enemy, so I had to control it. I had to be so specific about where I would allow my energy to go. But the reality is it's not the enemy, and it's going to flow regardless. And so, but I think I was 20, how old was I? 23 when I started orgasmic meditation. And, for those of you that don't know what orgasmic meditation is, it's a partnered meditation where one individual strokes the other's clitoris for 15 minutes with no goal other than just to feel sensation. And when I first learned this practice, I didn't I didn't actually have sessions with partners for a while, because the philosophies were so potent in my everyday life. Just to feel sensation. I stopped calling the energy in my body anxiety because I started calling it sensation. And the moment that I started describing it as sensation, it had less of a villainized or demonized experience in my physical body. Because listen, if I'm saying that anxiety is the worst thing in the world, and oh my God, I have these anxiety attacks, and I'm a victim to that experience, then I'm never going to notice the nuanced sensations of what it actually feels like. And so I'm going to share this story with you. It's kind of ridiculous, but nonetheless, I had been in the space of Om for, I think at the time it was 3 years. This was probably about 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. So 2 or 3 years after learning Om, I was going out for a run. And in the middle of my run, I was having what I would have previously called a panic attack. But because of my training, I had already learned, okay, well, feeling victimized by this surge of energy in my body and calling it a panic attack, calling it an anxiety attack, doesn't actually serve me. So let me just call it sensation. And so I stopped running and I started walking and I just tuned into my body and I felt in to where the energy was. And at that point, it was in my throat, but up by my ears. And so I just followed it. I followed this surge of energy. And so it was okay, so now it's moving into my throat. My throat's feeling tight. Okay, and I felt another surge of energy come up through my chest into my throat. Okay, feels like my throat is tight. It feels like my throat is blocked. And then I paused. And then I asked myself, have I felt this sensation before? And I did. I said, where else have I felt the sensation? And the sensation that I felt was the last time that I had felt that exact sense of sensation, a surge of energy from my chest, a surge of energy from the top of my mouth down through my throat, was during a physical encounter with a partner whom I enjoyed. I enjoyed the experience. And so just dropping into the sensation allowed me to remove the context that my energy is bad, villainous, wrong, needs to be controlled. I then switched the lens of I've had this sensation before. The last time I had this sensation, it was actually physically enjoyable. So why am I not enjoying it right now? What I realized, it was just my context. It was 100% the way that I was relating to the energy of my body. If I'm coming at it as the energy of my body is wrong, it's destructive, it is to be controlled, then that is how I'm going to consistently relate to it. But if I'm approaching it as it's just sensation, it can be pleasurable sensation, have I enjoyed it before, then I actually open myself to more opportunity to interact with the energy itself rather than my projection of how it ought to be or how it is, right? There's not a story filter on it. It's just filtering the energy physically through my body. And so even right now, I can feel there's a tightness in my chest. It's very fluid. So it's tight, but they're inside it's very fluid. There's lots of tingles in my nose. There's a tightness around my diaphragm, but it's very warm. And some vibrations in my thighs. Now, if I were to peel away from those just being sensations, I could totally be victimized and upset by the energy of my body and call it something like nervousness. I could call it something like anxiety. I could call it something like overwhelm, tiredness. I could give it all of these names, but I would not actually be feeling what's actually happening in my body. And ultimately, after learning just about describing body experiences by sensations, is I've realized it's actually far more intimate that way. And so I ended up adopting a philosophy of intimacy happens in detail. It's the exploration of the very subtle nuances in a sensation. And the more subtle you can get into, the more nuanced you can feel, the more intimacy you have with yourself, but then also with other people. If you need an example, if I tell you I have anxiety, you only know what anxiety feels like from your own lens. So if you're someone who has quote unquote anxiety attacks, To you, it might feel like sweaty palms, dry mouth, blurred vision. But for me, in the same thing that we've just described, I don't have sweaty palms. I don't have blurred vision. It's all about my throat and my chest. But I can breathe just fine. And so if I'm having a quote-unquote anxiety attack, an energy surge, and someone tells me, oh, you need to just breathe, I tell them to go fuck themselves, because breathing isn't my problem. But you're using your experience of anxiety to prescribe me a tool. There's nothing unique about that. There is nothing custom to my experience about that, because I have not shared the intimacy of what I'm experiencing for you to actually understand it, because all I said was it was an anxiety attack. And therefore, you had to use your own interpretation of that. Versus, if I actually tell you the sensations I'm feeling, you can feel the physical sensations in your body. Therefore, having actual empathy. You can actually empathize on what it feels like to be me in those moments, because I'm giving you the exact description of it. So let's say I'm someone who has a quote-unquote anxiety attack, energy surge, and I have sweaty palms. Like, wow, my hands are so sweaty. You can relate to that. You can feel the discomfort in having sweaty hands. You can relate to the experience I'm physically having, because you understand it. But if I just say it's anxiety, it's too open for interpretation. And if it's open for interpretation, then it's not actually intimacy. And I think we can look at that just a little bit further too. Like if I'm always calling the experiences I have anxiety or panic, then I'm never actually intimate enough with myself to know what's going on. And if I'm not intimate enough with myself, with the energy that's in my body, then I'm never going to know how to channel it. I'll never know how to hold it. I'll never know how to express it in a way that actually honors my physical body. Case in point, when someone's angry. We never, I don't think we actually create spaces for us to be angry and let ourselves really experience that anger in full, because we're so busy calling it anger that we never get intimate enough with to say, it's like, I have so much heat boiling from my arms into my hands. My hands are now cramping. Now, if someone were to tell me that, I'd be like, oh, have you punched a pillow lately? Do you want to just go punch a pillow to let that energy out? That would that's a logical stream of things, right? But it's also an honoring stream. If I have so much pent up energy in my arms and it's cramping my body up, it's okay, we need to go flush that out. But if I tell you I'm just so angry, then I've either got to bite my tongue and not let it out at all, or what we tend to do as a society is we unleash it on people, because we can't hold that sensation for ourselves. We don't have the practices that allow us to have the muscle tone to hold the sensation for ourselves. And it's not saying that we always hold it, right? For me, a lot of my practice in the last year has been around holding myself inside highly emotional experiences. And so what that really looked like was, April of last year, I read Women Who Love Too Much, and I actually did all of the work inside of it. And I tell you, I read a chapter and I journaled on it, and then I would read another chapter and I would journal on it, and I would do all of the exercises. It was a very intense month. And I just cried the whole time. And I didn't stop myself. I was just I'm just going to unleash it because I can't hold this. The next month, my grandmother died. And I let myself cry, full out unleashed. And then I would spend, a couple, maybe half an hour every day, letting myself cry, but with the awareness of my body. So I could hold myself in my emotions rather than unleashing it, but be with me in my own tears, be with me inside my own experience. And so, I don't know if I'm really explaining the nuance here, but there is a difference in unleashing energy, holding energy back, and then allowing your energy to be fluid and honoring the process of it. If I'm crying, honored tears look very different than tears that I'm pushing out or tears that I'm holding back. You can just see it. And for me, in my physical body and what it looks like, is if I'm holding tears back, there's a lot of like there's like physical restraint in my face. If I'm pushing tears out, it's like a forced, like I'm like trying to force tears out, and you can see it on my face. But if I'm just honoring my tears, you'll just see them. They'll just like boil over. And I can still talk and like honor that moment and give myself space, and it's not forced or contorted or whatever. And that's a practice. It's not something you do like, because listen, like life itself doesn't always allow for you to be able to honor your emotions in real time. In certain scenarios, other things take precedent. For me, it's more about understanding that like for a lot of years, I was so controlled around my emotional experience that it would have to boil over because the energy in my body is fluid. You can only dam it up for so long before it's like, nope, we're going to throw this away. This dam is going to be destroyed. And so understanding I don't have to control it, and I don't have to manipulate it, right? Because that's the other side of it. Like the unleashing is the manipulation of energy. The controlling is the manipulation of energy. Being fluid with the energy is an honoring of it. And so, yeah, I think that's it. I'm going to leave you guys with that. I would love for you just to take a moment and feel into your own body and just note sensations. Like just value neutral sensations. Like, like right now, my forehead feels very like there's a wide, it's very wide in my forehead right now. There's some warmth in my cheeks. There's some weight in my jaw. There's like warm, swirling energy in my chest. A thick weight in my diaphragm. And a bubbling weighted and bubbling sensation in my lower belly. So I would invite you to just go and do like a cycle through your body of like, what are the sensations? And when I say value neutral, I mean this, like, don't use metaphor, don't use simile, don't be like, oh, there's butterflies in my belly. Being like, oh, there's a fluttering. Sure, that works, but like, try to be as specific as possible in how you describe the sensations in your body. And so one of the ways I like to describe it is color, texture, location, and temperature. So you might feel like, if you really feel into your body, be like, oh, there's like a blue or like a green sensation, or there's like a hot sensation, or there's a, like an effervescent feeling, right? And just like running it through your body. And it acts as like an energetic check to see like, well, what is the quality of energy that's in my body right now? What is it like in my head? What's it like in my chest? What's it like in my body? What's it like in my thighs and my legs and my feet? That way we're not applying a lens to the experiences we're having in our bodies, but actually feeling them as they are. And I think for me, that's been one of the things that has been transformative for me. And I have to practice it all the time because, like I said today, I was totally not in my body. I was overrunning all of the energy in my body. I was not checking in with the energy in my body, and I was just getting shit done. Like I was in drill sergeant mode. And so now, when I'm no longer in drill sergeant mode, the energy that I had dammed up, that I had controlled, that I had manipulated to get to be productive, now is like flushing through my body. It's like starting to calm now. Like my legs have a lot more gravity than they did 20 minutes ago. My chest is still a little bit tight. But like I feel much more grounded now than I did 20 minutes ago because I'm tuning into my body a little bit more. And so, yeah, and this goes back to moss, because moss is the filtration. It is the allowance of river water or creek bed water to actually flow through. And so it's not obstructive, right? It's not the damming. It's not controlling the water. It's not controlling the rapids. It is a filtration. So to allow the water to continue moving, to allow the energy to continue moving, but also checking in with it and being like, okay, we're going to filter it here. Just be like, okay, this is what's going on here. We're going to filter it here and say, okay, this is what's going on there. And like allowing our body to do that the whole time. And, you know, I think had I done that more consistently throughout the day, I probably would have realized that I was spending a little bit too much time working today. It's Sunday. Why the fuck am I doing that? There was at one point like a very beautiful flow. And had I checked in with my energy, it would have been like, yep, we're good to do this for another 20 minutes. But there was a point where it was like, I'm done. And I ignored it. That's kind of the point that I'm making here. Because I think the thing with following an energetic flow that people get lost on or confused about is like at no point is checking in with the energy that's flowing through my body mean that I'm not going to be productive. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to get things done for my life. It only means that my energy in my body is flowing optimally while I'm doing it. Because if I had to control the energy in my body, there's going to be a cost to it. There's going to be some sort of implication or consequence. Like when I first came upstairs just to sit down and I started listening to music, there was just like a flood of tears coming out of my body because it was like, fuck, like I ignored everything today. I didn't really eat today. I didn't really like have my morning coffee. I didn't journal. Like there was so much that didn't happen today because I was just damming my energy up. I was not letting it flow. It wasn't filtering through my body. It was being stuck at different places so I could get things done. So yeah, so definitely run your energy through your body and just check with it. And I like to come from the place of like, what is the quality of the energy that is in my body more so than like a judgment of it. Because sometimes like the energy you have, and this is something I always say in bank, it's like the energy that you have is always perfect for the truest thing at hand. And so the energy in my body, if it's like, oh my God, I could go run a marathon, maybe I should go for a run instead of trying to sleep, right? It's like going for a run would be the truest thing with that energy. But the control, the damming of that energy would be like, no, I have to go to sleep. And so therefore I would take the melatonin. Therefore I would take all of the things to try to force my body into a sleep state. But meanwhile, the energy in my body is still running at the same quality that would be useful for just to go for a run. And so, you know, I'll probably talk more about this in the next 100 days, but like there is this nature of trusting the energy to give you exactly what it is that you need to be doing instead of you controlling against it. And this shows up mostly in like the way that we actually live day to day. And so the thing that's coming up for me to talk to you guys about is like even the way that I wake up in the morning. So for a while, if you follow me on Facebook, I was talking about this quite a bit, and I'll probably be talking more about it on my YouTube channel, but I would wake up in the morning and I noticed that I was like scrunching my forehead, which is pretty much the epitome of trying to control your own energy. But I was scrunching my forehead because I knew it was early. Like I was like, it is gotta be early right now. It's definitely like 3 a.m. And it was 3 a.m. And I would like scrunch my forehead. I'm like, fuck, I don't want to get up right now. It's too early. I don't want to do this. And like, it took a minute, but I realized, I was like, holy fuck, that is how I'm starting my day? With my forehead scrunched, like centering all of the energy in my forehead right here and putting up some barricades around it. Rather than just trusting if my body wanted me to be up at 3 a.m., I can be up at 3 a.m. And so for a period of time, I would actually just allow myself to get up. And when I tell you I had the best days were the days that I just let myself get up, I mean it. And I don't always do it, right? Like it is still a practice for me to not just like pick up my phone or not to scrunch my forehead or just to like lounge in bed because I'm like, I don't want to get up. If I really do practice this and consciously put my intention on it, the moment my body wakes up, it's like, okay, relax my forehead. I don't need to fight this. And this moment that I stop fighting my wake up is the moment that my body is like, okay, we're actually ready for this. And then slowly my eyes open at their own pace. And then my day just like unfolds from there. And so, you know, this is a part of the practice of like running the energy through your body. It's like, I wake up. What's the energy good for? Well, the energy obviously wants me to wake up right now. It doesn't matter about the clock. It doesn't matter that it's 3 a.m. And so letting myself wake up, such as like today, where's my energy at? Oh, I probably should get off this computer. Like, the energy that's running in your body at all times actually knows what it's best for. It is our minds that try to control it, try to like manipulate it to go into a particular direction because we think that that's the best use for it. But more often than not, that our manipulation of our own internet energy is being misallocated. And if you've ever done something like project management, you know that there's like, you don't never want to misallocate a resource. You want to leverage things that you've already done. Like you want to leverage things that are easier to do. And so controlling your energy is not easy ever. And the attempt to make that easy is a waste of your time. The energy is always going to be true for the perfect, is always perfect for the truest thing at hand. And so if you just let that energy dictate it, if you let that energy flow through you, it will show you where your attention needs to be and where it could be, and not require additional effort. Waking up like this requires so much additional effort, because then I wake up cranky when I actually do decide to get up, because all of my energy was centered. All of my energy was sucked up through my body and being like, no, it's got to stay right here. And so I'm like, okay, fluid. So anyways, I'm rambling now, so I'm going to let you guys go. I would love to hear what you're taking away. Feel free to message me if you have questions or if there's things that you want to chit chat about. Otherwise, just simply leave me a comment of what landed or resonated for you most in day 3 of 100 days of Moss. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.